What is up, my LGBT friends? Yeah! Okay, so this isn't going to be a scripted video. It's going to be a bit more of a rant on Mother's Basement's recent video of Goblin Slayer. I'm probably not going to joke around, or at the very least not do mini jokes and keep the edgy humor to a minimum, and actually seriously respond to all this. I just have some bullet points I'm going to read off and a little bit of notes. I mostly agree with Mother's Basement when he says first impressions are very important and can make or break a series, but I will have to explain it a little later because it ties into a completely different point. Mother's Basement says, it was unfair of him to judge the whole series and calling it edgy and repugnant off the first episode, and I kinda agree just because of the fact judging any show off of only the first episode is an unfair judgment. I'm okay if you were going to say, it would be fair to say the first episode is good or bad or how it started or anything like that, but I don't think it's fair to judge the whole series based off that. Now, the part where he says, the rape scene in Goblin Slayer may be just as bad or if not worse than the SAO rape scene, is one thing I've always been disagreeing every time I hear it laid out because it's a completely different kind of context. I explained it in my previous Goblin Slayer video on why that is a really bad comparison, and overall just absolutely makes no sense, and if you really believe that, it makes me kind of question if you can differentiate what is done good and what is done bad. At least Mother's Basement gives an example on what he believes to be good, but I'll talk about that in a bit. So Mother's Basement says it's a significant time for the sexual assault. I don't see it as significant time. It was less than a minute. Actually, it was less than 30 seconds. If you calculate it right when they start ripping off their clothes, all the way to the time that the priestess went off the screen and got away, it's about 1 minute, maybe at most. I'm not sure what Mother's Basement is saying that is a significant amount of time. If we're talking about the rape just it in its own, it's only around like 10 seconds. So I don't see his point in him saying it's a significant amount of time for the sexual assault. It just doesn't add up. The building the characters up right before killing them. Okay, so this is a criticism I always saw thrown at A Comic to Kill for building up their character and then killing them off either later that episode or the next episode as killing them for the sake of killing them. And I can completely see people making that same argument if we built up the characters in this show as in, oh, they just got you to get attached to them and then brutally killed them and then raped them for a fake amount of emotional attachment. I honestly don't think we needed them to have an emotional attachment to these characters because that wasn't the main thing of the show. In fact, what the story is mostly trying to show is that this guy right here is trying to be like a main character from like your typical harem. You know, you got the geek, you got the tsundere kind of like person, you got a lolly that follows them, you know, just your typical harem. And the show is pretty much showing that, no, it's not going to be like this, especially with right after it just kills them. It's purposely showing that this is not going to be sunshine and rainbows. And they were never even characters, really. Even if you add all the stuff inside the novel, they're still not really characters. It was more of they are tools just to show that these goblins are what people think they are. And I'll still have to talk about that more in a completely different point, but just keep that in mind. Mother's Basement says it's supposed to scare the audience, which I disagree. I don't think this is supposed to be scary at all. I believe this is only a scene that is supposed to make you hate them. I don't see what is supposed to get you scared in this kind of scene. It's either supposed to make you hate them or empathize with the rookies. But then again, I've never really been scared of any anime, and I've seen well over 700, and my favorite genre is horror, so you can take that with a grain of salt. Mother's Basement says they aren't acting like a chaotic evil rape parasite would act, and I 100% agree with this, and that's because they aren't that, which will be explained in the very next thing, where he says, there is no good reason for the goblins to be standing off to the side. Well, here's the thing, Mother's Basement. The goblins have always been shown to have teamwork throughout the whole show. Yeah, just the whole show. When they went to fight the rookie who was a boy, the only reason they beat him was, well, for one, he lost his sword, but two, is because of the teamwork they had attacking him from all angles. And when he got beat up, they held him down and were all chopping him up in many different ways. As in, they were all standing to the side, as if you would, holding him down. This also happened with the mage when they were fighting her. It was all teamwork for that as well. This happened with the brawler. If you look at Goblin Slayer, when he showed up, they went after Goblin Slayer at first in a team, but the moment he killed all of them except for one, they started running away because they don't do anything without a team. They always have been working as a team. And in fact, the only reason why those rookie adventurers lost is because of lack of teamwork. They all try to fight by themselves, but still try to fight the goblins. And it's not really a flaw inside the show for them to do that, because it never established how much of a friendship they had between each other, besides that he was trying to, gain a harem with them. So when it came to that scene, of course they're holding her down so that she doesn't ever move, and they're all raping her, taking one at a time. And that's also because they're trying to repopulate. The only place for them to come is inside of her so that she can get pregnant. So you're asking why they're not all jumping on her and raping her at once. It's because they're not trying to just get pleasure from it, but rather they're trying to reproduce. It's even stated inside there they quickly reproduce, and that is like their main goal with the females, is reproducing. If you wanted to point out some inconsistencies, we can talk about why they killed the mage, which makes no sense to kill her if they were going to use her as reproducing, as well as having the priestess run off. Like, there's more inconsistencies rather than this one rape scene. I don't think this rape scene is the reason why episode 1 had lots of flaws. And trust me, the more I looked at the first episode, the more flaws I began to see. As with my last video, I watched the episode around 10 times before I made the video, but I only pointed out the flaws I saw on the first time watching. I could have made the list a lot longer, but that would mean pretty much making about around a 25-minute video, because there's so many flaws in the first episode. I don't believe it makes it all that bad, just a bad start, but still, it's not the rape scene. The next point about disliking stuff, I will say, okay, while you can dislike a show for literally any reason ever, and you are well in your right to dislike the show for it, kind of like how Anime America dislikes Cell at Work for giving cancer cells more characterization inside a story and actually making it more than a one-dimensional villain. She kind of wanted it just to be something that is always looked down upon, something completely evil. And she's well in her right to dislike it for that reason. But that doesn't mean the show itself is bad, and that doesn't mean it's a problem with the show itself. Mother's Basement says you have a significant amount of people that have a problem with the barrier entry of this. Now, I would need some statistics on this, because from what I see, it was, for a while, the #1 anime of the season, and right now it's still sitting at maybe #2, maybe beat out by the Bunny Girl Senpai. And I'm not talking about based off of what I like. I mean, I'm talking about mostly what is upvoted on r/anime most of the time, and it's almost always front page every single time. And I mean the discussions of it. The discussions usually blow out the other anime. And when looking at Twitter, as much as I like to laugh at those tweets, there was only about maybe 30, 40 tweets at most. Oh, and why is this different for other PTSD stuff? You bring up this show's rape scene would trigger someone's PTSD just for the mere fact of it being sexualized, which again, I 100% disagree with it being sexualized. It's more idealized than sexualized. But I don't think we're going to agree on that. I could give my points, but it would take a long time to explain the difference between idealized and sexualized. But yeah, he doesn't explain why having it written better would not trigger PTSD, but having it written bad does. I don't know, me, I would assume anything that reminds me of it probably trigger it, whether it is written good or bad. Mother's Basement talking about this being a normie filter, and I would have to agree with having this as a normie filter, just on the mere fact of what these scenes were supposed to convey. It's supposed to be like a this is Dark Souls bitch kind of moment. It's supposed to show you that, hey, this show isn't going to be all sunshine and rainbows. This show is dark, and it's not supposed to make you feel all warm and fuzzy. It's a fucking dark fantasy. It's supposed to just show you a really fucked up world. Like, this still has a few plot holes in the sense of the priestess was working with the church, and apparently all the rookies that get raped by goblins go to the church, and they explain it at the beginning saying that this happens very often. I don't know how she never heard of that until now. I mean, the first episode had a lot of different problems, but the rape scene wasn't it. Mother's Basement disagrees with this filter being on, saying it isn't about the rape, which that's only technically correct, in the sense of Hunter x Hunter isn't about fighting, or JoJo's isn't about stands. It's something that sets the mood and atmosphere of the world you live in. It's not saying this is what it's about, but rather making the world more believable. Mother's Basement says, why is this the first thing a new viewer needs to get past? And that is mostly because of the younglings. inside Goblin Slayer. And it's to show that the goblins do what they do because they're just trying to survive, have no real remorse for what they're doing, and people need to protect themselves for it. They're like, oh, but the young ones didn't do anything. No, it was more to show that it doesn't matter. There's no morality in this. What you need to do is kill them off. It's kind of like the Goblin Slayer is the pessimistic view, and the priestess is the optimistic view. Oh no, not even pessimistic view. He's more the realist view, that this may be the one goblin out of the millions that doesn't grow up to hate them and anything like that. It would just be a safer bet to just see it as if they would be when they grow up. Don't let defending this scene be the hill you die on, and acknowledge it is a bad first episode. Okay, this is the most unironic condescending lines I've ever heard from Jeff, because it's literally saying that this is objectively bad. No matter what you say, it is bad. And you defending that is defending something that is bad, and that's the end of the conversation. You shut down all conversation because you decided it was objectively bad. There's no other kind of argumentation about this. But to say that there's literally no other argumentation about this is strange when there is a lot of stuff that I don't think most people would agree with. Acknowledge it as potentially offensive first episode. Well, it being offensive, for one, is highly subjective, because what can be offensive to you may not be offensive to me. People can find literally anything offensive. People can find milk being offensive. Freaking okay hand sign being offensive. But even if it is offensive, that doesn't make it bad. Jeff uses, imagine your favorite video essay of Mother's Basement's channel, or Super iPastel's channel, and says, what's up nigger? Or would that make the video worse? And I gotta say, it really depends on the topic. The topic could be about the Boondocks, and talk about how the TV company was fighting to have the Boondocks not censor the word nigger. And in fact, it was actually one of the things that the creator really wanted inside the show, for it not to be censored, because that's kind of the idea of the show, is to televise a message while making it entertaining. But the only way for you to get that message is by taking that first step in not being so closed off because someone said something offensive. Because the truth isn't always rainbows and butterflies. Sometimes there's the cold hard truth where you just need to. If it's a video essay like that, then yes, it could actually make the video better to start it off like that. If the video essay is about why no one should ever say anything offensive and you're playing it for preschoolers, yeah, probably don't. If it fits the tone, it can still make the video better. I would never agree to this thing that no matter what the context, it would not be a good thing. This goes for even sexualizing rape. It's because it seemed like you didn't agree with the rape just because, okay, for one, I disagree with it was sexualized, but even if we agree on it, the only reason you showed it was quote-unquote bad was because it was sexualized, and you never gave a reason why that makes it bad. You pretty much just pointed out is that it is sexualized, which again, it doesn't make it bad. It would have to contradict the themes of the show, or contradict the point it's trying to get out, and it doesn't. Even if it is sexualized, that doesn't contradict. Just for the mere fact that it's showing that the goblins are doing a horrendous act. For the goblins, it is sexy, but for, I would say most others, it probably isn't. Mother's Basement then says, everyone has a line which they don't want the media to cross. Depending on how you define media, I find this completely wrong. People can get offended or dislike the thing for whatever reason, but to say they don't want the media to cross is literally saying that it should not exist. And I completely disagree with that. I don't think there should be a line in fiction that can't cross on the basis of freedom of speech. I guess that's all the bullet points I had down. I don't know, I completely disagree with Mother's Basement outlook on this. I mean, it's not as bad as the Pedantic Romantics video on this, and I think even Mother's Basement agrees that that's too far, which you can see that he does a few nods against that video. But yeah, I guess that's all for now. And yeah, I guess that's all. I mean, I'll be taking a look at the comments. If there's too much disagreements with what I'm saying in the comments, I'll make a follow-up video in far more detail. I was just getting the idea out there to see how much I would have to explain, because if I went into detail with every single point, the video would be way too long. I'd rather just see what I need to go into detail with, see what people disagree with. And I'm going to steal Flutterbar's outro, so like, comment, share, I don't really care. Also, very last point, Necro13 should have either uploaded a video about this as well, or he's about to upload, so go check out his channel.